Hello, my name is Brady Buckner, and I am the president of the Financial Services Innovation Coalition, or FSIC as we call it. And welcome to the Financial Services Innovation Coalition video podcast. FSIC is a network of industry innovators, legislators, community groups, and academics who share a passion for applying emerging technology and market innovation to create a more inclusive economy and to advocate for policy that promotes economic empowerment. Today, our topic is the metaverse. What is it today, and what will be its impact on our future? And we have a very special guest today, who is one of our very first podcast guests. It's Dr. Neil Sahota. Dr. Sahota is an IBM Master Inventor, the United Nations Advisor for Artificial Intelligence, and a professor at UC Irvine. He's been a friend and colleague of ours for many years. We love having him on this podcast. And so, Dr. Sahota, thank you so much for speaking with us today. And to start with, could you tell us maybe a little bit more about yourself and then define the metaverse in terms that we can all understand?
Hey, Brady, it's always good to see you, and thanks for having me on. Well, the last couple of years, I've actually been doing a lot of work in the convergence of the metaverse, AI, and cognitive science. So looking at things like mental health, we all know that's a big issue and challenge for us. We were able to tap into like the metaverse to help people go through these stressful situations in the virtual world. So they can actually try things and get coaching from AI so they can actually build up like coping skills and resilience. So I've really been trying to tap into my work last couple of years to allow people to experiment, take a little bit more risk, but see what actually happens without impacting the real world. So
Interesting.
freedom of experiment has proven to be extremely useful for a lot of organizations.
Outstanding. So is it possible to define what the metaverse is in terms that just the average person can understand? Because it's very, very, very cutting edge stuff. I've dabbled in it and I feel like I know more than the average person, but I certainly don't feel like I know that much about it. What do you think?
Yeah, it's actually very simple. The metaverse is basically any virtual world. I know that most people think the metaverse equals virtual reality. No, virtual reality is just one way to experience the metaverse. You have a digital world like on your laptop screen or your tablet screen or your phone screen. And even though you're controlling it with a keyboard or a mouse or your finger, the digital world is just someplace you can actually be immersed in, explore. You can walk around, you can interact with other people that are real or NPCs they call it, AI bots, if you will. But the whole idea is to change how we actually interact with things. It's not about typing into a Google search bar anymore. It's not necessarily just a Zoom video conference call, something like that. It's actually having a whole world that you experience through, like I said, your laptop screen, through virtual reality, through augmented reality. But it's really this combination now of I can learn and do things in this virtual world. That's what we mean by metaverse.
So what is the difference between, say, Meta's metaverse, which we can talk about a little bit more, and Roblox or Minecraft?
So that's a great question. Those are all good examples of the metaverse, and everyone kind of has built their own world. And that's the key thing. You go into Meta's metaverse or Meta's digital world. That's their own self-contained thing that they build. You look at like Minecraft, Microsoft owns that, but that you can build your own, cities, that kind of stuff. It's different experiences, different things that you can do.
So as far as what impact that has on the average person, because kids, of all ages play Minecraft and Roblox. So what impact does it have on us today? Because what I'm trying to get at is there's an aspect of this brand new technology that's affecting a lot of people today, whether they know it or not. But yet the applications for the future, like you just said, with mental health and things, are going to be immense. So where are we at?
So from a metaverse perspective, I think we're a lot further along than what people realize. So there's a lot of benefits to it in terms of one, accessibility. Now you don't have to be physically present in this particular school or university or this office building. So you improve accessibility to people, to knowledge, right, with the same kind of immersive environment. It's not quite the same as in person, but it's at least a solid substitute. The second is the freedom to actually experiment. So I was liking the metaverse to the mirror dimension, the Doctor Strange movies. So if you watch those movies, they go in this mirror dimension and looks like an exact replica of the real world, and they practice magic. And so if they mess up, destroy a building, it doesn't have any real impact in the real world. So it's really a safe zone to try things. So
Wow.
if you're wondering, like, what's the impact of this policy? Will that actually create the level of help I hoped it did? Are there other side effects that we didn't anticipate, good or bad? A lot of this can be flushed out through the metaverse, AI, and cognitive science. So we can actually try things not in the real world, but in the metaverse, to see actually what happens. So
you heard it here. According to Dr. Neil Sahota, we are all a little Dr. Strange.
So accessibility, experiment, the ability to take more risk are key factors. Where we are, I think a lot of people don't realize how far we've come. Everyone always thinks, again, that it's like virtual reality. This could be Ready Player One. That's not it at all. Actually, what a lot of people are starting to say is we're almost at the next incarnation of the internet. So what people were saying in 1995 about the impact of the internet, we're kind of the same spot with the metaverse. 5 years from now, the internet's going to become a radically different place because it's going to be essentially all metaverse based.
Well, I just had this thought that the internet was suddenly there with AOL. They mailed out all those discs and everyone suddenly could communicate very easily. There was an internet before that, but in terms of people being able to use it. So it feels to me like, since the internet's always here, we're just going to kind of morph into a website or a chat room or something is no longer just that. The technology is different. Most people won't really realize that, but it'll just be expanded. So we're kind of going to morph into the benefits. And there's some real, there's a real dark side to the metaverse that we can't ignore right now. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. We are an organization that serves underserved communities. And in my opinion, if this technology, like so many others, passes over these underserved communities, it may be just devastating, because then the culture won't be there. The ability for people in schools and disadvantaged communities to learn this technology, which is going to be paramount. Everybody in the workforce practically will have some interaction with the metaverse. And if you don't know how to do that, it's really going to limit your job potential. So if you could put some specifics, why is it so crucial for underserved and minority populations to be involved in this now?
Well, I don't want to be so cliche, Brady, but the future work depends upon it. It's not just knowing the metaverse and how to apply some of those capabilities, on the job. That's definitely going to be important. But think about the upskilling opportunities that are going to occur. Imagine being a child today that you have zero access to the internet. What does that do to you competitively in your education? It's going to be the exact same thing, because in the metaverse, it's a lot easier to get knowledge. You can train, practice, whether you want to, experiment and, build a model car, you want to check out, space, you want to, understand how electrical wiring or plumbing works. A lot of this is going to be done through the metaverse, right? We've already seen it's a great way to teach. Like, you look at doctors, they may not have done a surgery in 10 years or since medical school. 30 minutes in the metaverse practicing the surgery, they become proficient. It's a lot better than,
Wow.
They're looking right now, looking at videos, or trying to read a book, refresh their memory.
Right.
But you think about every basic skill that we can do, those communities that don't have access to the metaverse, don't have the infrastructure for that, their skill sets will really radically decline in comparison to everybody else. we're basically pushing them out of work in general. We can't have that. That's why
Yeah,
it's
like
really
like not
paramount.
even unskilled, but like just no skill, and that's really a dangerous thing for these communities because they're already halfway there. It's we've done work to try to fix
100%.
that. Yeah,
I mean, that's why I tell people, why is this so important? We have, everyone has access to it. It's literally like, imagine you don't have access to the internet. Everybody else does, but you don't. What happens?
right. So I guess you hit on something else as I'm trying to differentiate for people what the difference is between the online experience today and the metaverse. And that is exactly what it is. Instead of watching videos on how to do surgery or fix a pipe or something, you're actually able to go in and do it and control the environment, not the environment, but your person and what's going on. That is really a big difference. So
Yeah,
well said.
and ironically, that's just the basic stuff, Brady. I mean, the upskilling is the basic stuff. What we've actually seen with the metaverse, working with some of these organizations as they try and solve their complex problems, is it actually stimulates and develops their creative thinking skills. So getting that kind of flow state, getting that focus, the freedom to experiment, they take that beyond the metaverse. So when something unexpected happens, good or bad in the real world, suddenly they're able to react to it much faster. They're thinking through it more to come in with more creative solutions. So it's actually a way for us to help teach people creative thinking.
Right. And if you're familiar with that and it helps you, and it's not a surprise when it does it, like you're like, oh, I've been practicing this, form of creativity, and you don't have access to any of that again, that's another disadvantage for disadvantaged communities. And so we really need to make sure they participate. So when we were kind of warming up for this episode, we were talking about really some really bad things that have happened already in the metaverse. And so for policymakers, regarding the policy and the regulation of the metaverse, what should our elected and appointed officials avoid? And does any item or any issue deserve special attention? And we can talk about what we talked about before, but I'd like to warn the audience that this could be a little bit upsetting. So if you might want to tune out for just a few minutes. But Dr. Sahota, tell us, this is a really serious thing, because if they get this wrong, it could stifle America's ability to really benefit from the metaverse.
Yeah, this is the dark side you alluded to early, Brady. Like, technology is like any tool, could be used for good or it could be used for bad, depending on how we wield it. And with all the upside and good things we can do with the technology, there's already been incidences now where people have been like sexually assaulted in some of these virtual worlds. So there's Meta's, Facebook's digital world. People have reported that they have been attacked, in some cases even raped. There was a reporter, I can't remember which publication off the top of my head, but she even experienced this herself. The question then becomes is, what do you do, right? Who do you report this to? Because part of the metaverse is what's the sovereignty thing, and from a poly standpoint, like if you're a U.S. government official or state official, someone reports a crime in a metaverse, what can you do about that? Or is that the realm of the owner of the metaverse, the people that created the universe? Is that their thing? And so it's a really sticky wicket right now, because there's no clear answer. And those people that have been assaulted haven't had much recourse.
Well, and frankly, many of our elected officials and appointed officials don't understand sometimes the internet, much less email and so the metaverse. And so I think that the danger is their reaction is going to be, let's put a bunch of laws in place to curtail it, because they don't really have any other answers. And that is a real fear. So it is up to us to educate them on how important an economic and social development tool the metaverse can be, but that we do have to take care of some of these issues. Like, there are no laws that govern what your avatar does in a metaverse. That is a brand new legal question.
And this is the historic challenge when it comes to emerging technology. the balance between innovation and regulation, right? It can't be zero regulation, and we can't just say we'll let the companies self-regulate, because historically we've just never seen that work. And we know if we overregulate, then yeah, we'll stifle innovation. We may not get the value. Other countries may leapfrog us. We know it's a tricky wicket, but like the sexual assault stuff, everyone's first scratching their head is like, why would you even enable these capabilities in the first place?
Right. Now that could be policy that, because I do know from personal experience that when you go into Horizon Worlds, that's Meta's or Facebook's metaverse, that there's a very detailed explanation, at least I thought so, about how you can go into your own personal bubble so that you can't hear anybody or do anything. But I think it's like in the real world, if something's suddenly happening to you, are you going to remember that key command or where to put them at? Probably not. And so what I guess what statute or law or legislation could we put in place that would say, you have the ability to hit a panic button or to do something. And then I have another idea, but I would like you to speak on that first.
I mean, that would make sense. The challenge though is, one, I think, yeah, people think like, well, it's a virtual world, nothing's really happening to you, right? And physically that's technically true, but mentally you're still experiencing this. I think that's the challenge. And a lot of people said like, well, if this was happening in Horizon, why didn't you just kind of log off? And I remember the reporter, she was writing saying like, I was just a deer in headlights. I just froze. What is it? Fight, flight, freeze. Her mind just froze, and she like couldn't do anything. She was just aghast about what's happening, and she didn't know what to do or couldn't react. She was just immobile. And so even if you have a panic button, if you freeze up, what happens, right?
Yeah, and I think that what people that have never been in that situation, for instance, I've spent a fair amount of time in Horizon Worlds and other metaverses, and some of them you're really immersed, particularly if you have a VR headset. And trust me, you are immersed. I was on a tower throwing little airplanes to people below, so I was definitely interacting with people, and it was very serene and everything. So, it was a lot of fun, but I did have an experience where somebody came into a virtual courtroom that I was observing and completely disrupted the proceedings. So my idea, which was probably never going to work, is that you need to have metaverses where everyone's verified, so there are consequences. You can't just create these bots or these fake accounts. I think the comments section of most anything is ruined by trolls and bots. So on our website, we don't allow comments because of who we are and who we represent. There's a lot of hate out there. So I think that people should, in the metaverse, if you want to have safe places, are going to have to be verified so that you can at least kick them out. And then if they try to get back on, you're going to have the information saying, no, this person can't just create a new name and a fake social security number. Now that's too wheeling. And for some reason, the internet has been reluctant to do any of that. I haven't quite understood it, other than you don't want to restrict how many people are on it because that's a metric they use. And before I go any farther down that rabbit hole, could you talk on that?
Well, I mean, it's an interesting idea, but we can pull this back to social media for a second, because you use trolls, exactly the right word. Look what people are doing on social media, and it's like you can block them, you can stop them from creating accounts. There's so many ways around it. That's the problem, And even you can say like, well, you have to show me a driver's license or something like that, or a passport to have an account or an avatar or whatever it might be. People it becomes cumbersome. People are like, well, what are they doing with that data? It becomes a lot of things. And the truth is it's not like most people are bad actors. It's like that 5% that ruin it for everybody. I liken it ironically back to the Taybot, which, Microsoft, I think, what was it, 2015, 2016, they created a little AI system. They called it Tay, trained it up to basically the level, I think a 13 or 14-year-old teenage girl. And then the grand experiment was put it out there, right? let the AI interact with people, learn, it'll grow, fantastic social experiment, right? And Tate's first tweet was, "Hello world, I'm looking forward to getting to know you." And 24 hours later, Microsoft is shutting it down because the Taybot now is a neo-Nazi, misogynist, racist, tweeting out all these absurd things because a small number of people corrupted the AI system, taught it really bad things. And unfortunately, that's all it takes to mess things up.
Yeah, I'm going to keep thinking on that because I think that at some point people like me are going to be willing to go to the extra effort. And again, there's ways around certain things, but it would definitely cut down all the fake accounts, and the technology really needs to get there. That's my opinion, that if we don't do something like that, we just let anybody create an account that wants, that this will severely severely restrict what the metaverse and the the internet now with the metaverse could be. So
100%, Brady. I think that's the challenge, is that I think the only way to really curtail a lot of this behavior is if you do something in the metaverse, there are real world consequences, right? But that goes back to what we were talking about earlier, the policy, the regulation, legislation question is, how do you then balance that out, right?
right, and the policy could go bad very quickly and put something in place that's maybe a little draconian, that's easy to skirt around, and so then you're just hurting the people that are the good actors or making it more difficult for them. All right, well, this has been wonderful. I guess we could have done a whole series on it, and I just love talking about it. I would tell you my personal experiences, and maybe you can tell me how we can respond, is that I've gone beyond Meta's horizon worlds, and I've actually looked at Somnium Space, Sandbox, Decentraland. I bought a few pieces of land just to experiment. I'm not trying to get rich. I bought a few crypto coins. And I will say that to use a VR headset and to get into any of these, except maybe Horizon Worlds, is very difficult still. So they're going to have to fix that. To get into Somnium Space, every single time I do it, it takes all of this effort to go through the links, and then they don't work and stuff. So we've got a long way to go in that respect. But it is very exciting when you're wandering around somewhere like Somnium Space that is, it's like it's in Tron world, and I have a nice VR headset, so it's exciting to me to go in. I get really, I'm an early adopter, so I want to see where it's going to go, and to do that, I had to be an active participant. So I am, and so I'll report, a year or two from now on what happened with my land. Was I able to build anything on it, or did somebody steal it? Because that's still an issue. So before we go, do you have any closing comments? It's such a huge subject. I want to give you one last chance to get something out there that you believe is important for people to know.
Yeah, and I think this goes back to a couple of things we talked about, what you were just alluding to, Brady, in that the one thing about technology is that we know it moves fast, it improves fast, so cost and accessibility will hopefully come down. But when I said we're at the point of like the internet in 1995, I'm not joking. In 5 years, this is going to be the norm. And so we know there's a lot of good we can do with this. We got to promote that. We got to get accessibility, underserved communities, so we're not leaving them behind. And we have to be proactive on the policy side, because fortunately there's enough bad actors out there that they could corrupt the whole thing for everybody. And that's not what everybody wants. We really have a real powerful tool here. We can make leaps and bounds. I mean, exponential growth in medicine, in law, in financial resiliency, in climate change. Let's not take those opportunities away from ourselves because we weren't prepared for it.
Yeah, we are working with a group in Georgia. It's a group of ladies, and they're working on, and they're starting a decentralized autonomous organization, which is basically going to be their own metaverse, because they want to be able to attract other African Americans in this case to that, to have some success. And some of the other projects they're dealing with, like land and starting businesses, are being attacked by bad players, And so when they open their metaverse, it's going to be really scary to see, because there's a lot of hate down there that they don't want certain people to succeed. So we may have to come back and discuss that, and as a more, I guess, a little bit deeper discussion. We try to make these for average people, but sometimes we may have to go a little further. So, you know, Dr. Sahota, thank you so much. I thank you enough. You're so knowledgeable, and you're easy to talk to, so we appreciate that.
My pleasure, Brady. Anytime, man. Always fun talking with you.
All right. So to close this out, you know, I would like to thank you for being with us today. And if you're interested in learning more about FSIC and our programs and initiatives and research, please go to our website at fsicoalition.org. That's fsicoalition.org. And also, I'd like to thank all of our FSIC network members for their efforts to promote economic empowerment and social justice. Thank you for listening today.